Welcome into NHL Tonight. First shift, EJ Raddick alongside Tony Granado. We got a big program for you today for Tuesday, October the 22nd, 2024. And Tony, everybody's playing.
Isn't this great?
Everybody's playing tonight. 16,
this is a
16
hockey
games.
Fans, players, coaches' dream night because there's action all over the NHL.
All over the NHL. And
good games.
First things first, we got to get right to it so you can see it there. It's the only time this year that all 32 teams will be in action on the same evening. The games are going to start roughly every 15 minutes apart. There are some variations to that, but they're going to have staggered starting, which I think is awesome. NHL Network right here will have live looks and updates all night long, like we do every night.
Every
night.
night.
We do here at NHL Network. You can see NHL Now 5 to 7, NHL Tonight 7 to 11, and then On the Fly at 11. It's a big night at ESPN as well. The Frozen Frenzy. So great stuff for hockey fans. And you can see here, this is the first part, the first quarter, I guess, of the 16 games. 6 o'clock kicks it off. That one is on ESPN, Capitals and Flyers. Then we get 6:30, Wild and Panthers, 6:45, Devils and Lightning. You're going to be at that game.
I am.
And then 7 o'clock, the Buffalo Sabres and the Dallas Stars. Let's start with the first game, right? They start at the start with the Capitals and the Flyers. And the Capitals have gotten off to a pretty good start this year.
I tell you, and Spencer Carberry last year didn't win Coach of the Year because Tocchet did. But how he handled that transition of coming in. Ovi's got the chase going. Backstrom's on his way out. Carlson.
And remember, Ovi was slumping at the start of the season, couldn't score. That's a stress. You've coached several different plays, you know.
And to see how he handled all that, to keep those guys focused enough to make a playoff run, get to the playoffs, and then to be able to start it up again this year and get off to the start that they're off to, it's pretty impressive on what he's done there.
Yeah, and, you know, they've added Chychrun on defense. They've added Dubois up front. They took some shots, Tony. People will say, well, Dubois, he hasn't lived up to things. He's got a big contract. At the end of the day, when guys are playing great, are they ever available?
Well,
no,
great point. And
you take some shots.
You do, and that was a shot. The experiment in L.A. didn't work.
Yep.
Did it not work because it's the first time and the pressure of having to play in L.A. and maybe you can go hide behind Ovechkin a little bit and slide into that role and kind of be under the radar a little bit? Has he benefited from that? Maybe.
Yeah.
But like you said, they took a shot. It's worked out so far. Their team's up and running and doing great. And now the Ovi chase he's still 40 goals away.
Yeah.
So that gets exciting. And then this matchup. Let's not forget the way the season ended last year with these two teams, with the game being tied and Torts having to pull the goalie to try to win in regulation. Detroit's in Montreal doing what they need to do to get that game to overtime late.
Yeah.
And then getting ready for the shootout, and they see the scoreboard that Philly had lost that game and eliminated Detroit from the playoffs. So there's lots of excitement in this game. Michkov?
Yeah.
Wow.
Big night for Michkov, right? Because, like, you lived it as a young player, right? You come into the league, and there's guys that you play against, you're probably like, they're idols of yours, right? For Michkov, this is a big night. I mean, he's going up and getting to play against Alex Ovechkin, who he grew up probably idolizing back in his home in Russia.
Absolutely, he says it, and to have that opportunity, it reminds me a little bit of last year's opening face-off, which the NHL does so well.
Yeah.
Crosby versus Connor Bedard.
Yep.
Connor's idol. Opening face-off of the season, kicked off in Pittsburgh with those two players. Well, tonight, those two guys going against one another and being on the same sheet, I'm sure that Michkov has that same feeling. And Ovechkin's probably on the other side saying, okay, I got this young kid in there. Let's make sure we play our best game and I get my 2 goals tonight and get closer to Gretz.
Yeah, and, so it'll be interesting to watch. In the two teams, it's back-to-back games. So they play again tomorrow night. It'll be the only game on the schedule tomorrow night. They'll play in D.C. Did you like those back-to-backs when you were playing against the same team?
I had no choice. I didn't make the schedule.
Yeah.
So if someone was mad at me from what I did to them on one night,
and then mad at you, right?
Every now and then they did.
Yeah. And I didn't realize they got mad as mad as they did. But talking to some of the players that played against you, that's kind of a theme.
I'd rather have someone not like playing against me than like playing against me. I always had that mentality.
Yeah.
So I think that was something that was a good thing.
Yeah. So I mean, let's say the Flyers and Capitals. That's a good rivalry.
Great rivalry.
That kicks off the Frozen Frenzy this evening. And then good news from the Florida Panthers. They are playing in game number 2 of the evening, hosting the Minnesota Wild. Tkachuk is back per the head coach Paul Maurice. That from Jamison Olive there. So that is good news because they're already missing Barkov. He remains out. And then Matthew Tkachuk had an illness. He termed it a procedure. At the end of the day, he's been out, but he's back tonight.
He's back tonight, and like you said, the illness thing kind of got everybody a little bit worried because everyone's starting to think, okay,
what does that mean?
What does it mean?
Yeah.
And so, thankfully, he's back. He's a big part of the NHL, whether you like him or not. The kid and the family and all of the Tkachuks are a big part of it. So it's great to see him back. And what's amazing, again, about the Panthers, and you think about last year, they came off of that season of disappointment of having the run.
Right to the end.
Right to the end. Yeah. And then they had to start the year without Montour and without
Ekblad, yeah.
Ekblad.
Both guys, both
for lengthy times.
Yeah.
And what they do, they started off with that same competitiveness and that same grit that they had finished the year with, and it carried over throughout the year to help them win a cup. But what's amazing, and what I look at these teams, and we're trying to figure out, who's off to good starts and why. And I look back at a team like Florida, and you look at a team like the Rangers right now, and you look at a team like Boston. They're so deep in their identity on who they are that they play the same way no matter who's in the lineup or who's out. They have a swagger to them and an understanding of what it takes to win, and they do it season after season after season. And you look back on, you see, okay, how does that work? Well, it works because the ownership and management and captains and leaders and players and everybody has the
They're all aligned. Same agenda.
Same agenda, and they drop the puck. And they do it night after night after night. No matter what the circumstances are, who's in the lineup, what the score is, who they're playing, it doesn't matter. And they establish that identity, and that identity carries forward as long as you got good leadership. And that's the part I admire about Florida. I admire about, the teams that continue year after year after year to play the same way and get the same results of finding ways to get in the playoffs and get the most out of their players.
And, you say it, right?
And
Florida,
the coaches, give the coaches a lot
of course. Of course. I mean, with Florida, without Tkachuk and without Barkov in the lineup for the last 5, 3-1-1. So that speaks to the fact. Now, over maybe 50 games, it might be a little more challenging, right? You miss great players, but they step up 3-1-1, and Sergei Bobrovsky, their goaltender, going for his 400th career win tonight. I mean, I think he's a Hall of Famer, Tony. I mean, he's won a cup. He's been a 2-time Vezina winner. Now he's going to have over 400 wins. Who knows what he's going to finish with? To me, I don't know what else he has to do. He's shined on the international stage as well.
And the thing that I admire most about him is when teammates that have played with him or play with him now currently say, hardest worker, always on the ice early, always stays out for as many shots, best condition, understands that part of it, of being a great teammate and great goaltender, is that work ethic, is that everyday mentality of asking more of yourself to become better and be prepared for the next challenge that comes at you. So I get a ton of respect for him. At times of his career, it looked like he's maybe not going to live up to his potential, but to see what he's done in the past few years has been really exciting.
And they'll have their hands full with Minnesota tonight. 3-0-2 in their first 5 games. The Wild have been playing well for John Hines and that group. So we'll see how that one goes tonight with the Wild and the Panthers. We can take a look at the next group of 4 games, and we'll just go right. We'll just talk about it. We got the Rangers and the Montreal Canadiens playing tonight. 2 original 6 teams. You, of course, drafted originally by the New York Rangers. You talked about them, right? They've been a consistently good team over the last couple of years. Off to a good start this year. How about Lafreniere? He continues to get better.
He sure does. Yeah. And, again, early on in his career, when you come as an 18-year-old and you're high pick, everybody expects things to happen fast. And it took a little bit of time, but now you see the confidence that he's been playing with. You kind of see the path that the Rangers, how they have played him over the years, too, to help him understand that, hey, you're going to be a great player, but we want you to do these things along the way, so when you do get to that point where you're starting to understand the league a little better, your fundamental habits are good. And I've really admired how hard the kid's played, how committed he's been defensively, and now offensively things are starting to come for him. But let's not kid ourselves. So that team starts in the net We talk about building an identity, and you talk about Richter, and then you talk about Lundqvist.
And now they have Shesterkin.
Shesterkin.
That's a pretty good run of goalies.
And how do you win when you got good goalies? You play good team defense, and you do everything in front of them to show and make it as easy as possible on them. And then they can be great, and they've allowed that. So their identity of what they've become, you know, you got Panarin, you got plenty of offensive players, but ultimately for them to win, play sound defense, let Shesterkin be a #1 star every night like he's capable of, and guess what? You're probably one of the favorites to win a
Now, in this game, we've got Cole Caulfield and Keandre Miller,
yes.
Badgers.
Two
guys
Badgers,
coach there,
guys
so you're familiar with these guys.
Two guys that I'm very proud of. You know, Keandre's playing his 300th game tonight. Already.
Yeah.
Like
24?
already. Just turned 24.
Age, yeah.
And it's like, holy cow. He's 24, he's got 300. So he's done a really nice job on the transition from college hockey player to understanding and settling into the pro life, especially as a defenseman. Come in as a young D and handle the pressure that he's had in New York. He's been outstanding. And then Cole, off to that start, 6 goals in 6 games. And at the start of the year, we were back home saying, you know, is this the year Cole breaks out? What can he do if he does? And the conversation I had with buddies, and of course now that he's off to 6-6, I can say I think this is the year he could get 40. And if things go perfect for him, maybe even better than that. So he's off to that great start. He is a kid that loves to score. The best thing about Cole, and I think everyone that has watched him play, the smile that he has, and you see it right there on the replay, because the passion, enthusiasm, love he has for the game. Practice is the same. When he scores on the goalie, his own goalie in practice, he's doing the same celebration and same smile. So that young team is still raw. They haven't established their identity yet on really what they can be, but they got enough horses in the barn, so to speak, that they got a chance to be a real exciting team.
Yeah, they're certainly getting better. With Caulfield, I just want to ask you, because, I mean, from a goal-scoring standpoint, it's so unique when guys have that knack, right? I mean, he reminds me a little bit of Alex DeBrincat, a smaller guy that's had that ability to score goals. Like, what is it about him? I mean, obviously, you talk about his love for scoring. That's part of it. But, like, when he gets to certain spots on the ice, is he just seeing things a little bit quicker and getting to those areas where it puts him in a position to score?
It's great you brought up DeBrincat, because lots of NHL scouts were scouting him, and he's a small forward in college. You know, he'll never be able to make that transition. I said, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I said, look at DeBrincat. Look at Arvidsson. These guys are guys that are smaller players, but they find a way to score because they're great at it. They're better than other players at scoring goals. So I said, yeah, he's small. But would you take 30 to 40 goals every year in your lineup and have a small player in it? Because if you would, I would consider drafting him, because what I see on how much he likes to score, how deceptive his shot is off the stick. You talk to any goaltender, and this is where I learned it from our Badger goalies. You know, what makes it so hard on you to make a save on Cole? He goes, we have no idea when the puck comes off his stick where it's going. They're guessing. Yeah. And so he's so deceptive on how he handles the puck, and before he shoots it, before he releases it. And the other thing he does is, yes, he shoots the puck really well, but there isn't a day that goes by that he's not working on different things to become better at it. So with that being said, is he a 40 to 50 goal scorer consistently? I think he can be, yes.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, that's the key always, putting in the time and the work. The great players understand that, and he wants to be great.
And the love of the game, too. He loves the game more than he loves Cole Caulfield. That sometimes is the magic thing right there. For young players that are superstars and stars, if you can get to that point and love hockey more than you love yourself, it's somewhat kind of funny to say that, but it really does mean
it's a team game.
That's a powerful statement if you think about that.
And you know, having played a long time, not everybody has that, and it's a team game. Everybody's got to pull the rope. Everybody's got to feel like, to your point earlier, the same agenda, which is ultimately
I'm going to say two guys
winning.
really quick, and one I coached and one I played with. Wayne Gretzky, as much as you say all about Wayne's accolades, he loved the game more than he loved Wayne Gretzky. Sidney Crosby, I could give you the same list of that.
And you were with him in Pittsburgh.
I was with him in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, coaching
and the thing that I noticed right out of the gate is this guy loves the game so much.
Yeah.
And that's why those two guys, and why our game is so fortunate to have them as our faces of our game. Connor Bedard has a chance to do that. Connor McDavid, you saw a lot of growth in what his off the ice competitiveness and how much he cares about the game from some of the clips from last year's playoff. I mean, that was amazing because I didn't know that about Connor McDavid, and you see some of the things that happened in the locker room, and I gained a ton of respect for him, and now I want to cheer for him because I think that that's a great understanding of a young player.
Yep. At the end of the day, it's about winning. And speaking of winning, the Winnipeg Jets.
Wow.
Undefeated so far. The last undefeated team, completely undefeated in the National Hockey League with a perfect 5-0 mark. How are the Jets getting it done in your mind so far?
Well, we talked about that identity a little bit ago. They know what they have in net. They support him tremendously on how they play. But they also are balanced throughout their lineup to be able to contribute whenever the game's on the line. They know what needs to be done. And so you talked about Scotty O'Neill doing that. Rick Bowness handed that off to him. Paul Maurice was there a little bit before that. They've had some coaches come in there. But all those guys have laid fundamentals down to help that team understand what competitiveness need, how competitive they need to be to compete at this level. And those young players have bought into it. They've carried it over, year after year now. The past few years, they've been elite at certainly defensively playing the game. But the confidence they get from knowing if we play good team defense, at some point we're going to frustrate the skilled guys in the other team. And because of that, we're going to get more offense out of that. I think that is their game plan every game. Let's frustrate the other team's skilled guys. Let's be patient, wait for our opportunity. And when we get it, let's pounce on them.
Yeah.
And so they've been off to a great
Off
start.
to a good start, 5-0, taking on the Blues tonight in St. Louis. And a note for the Blues, Jake Neighbors signs a 2-year contract. So the 22-year-old kid who's gotten off to a good start in his career gets a new extension for 2 more years. When we come back, we're going to talk to the one and only Eddie O, joining us coming up next to talk a little bit about his life, about your relationship. You guys go back a long way, back to the days in Chicago. Eddie O coming up next on First Shift. Here's another piece of this monstrous 16-game schedule on this Tuesday evening. You can see Canucks Hawks, Kraken hosting the Avalanche, Bruins and Preds. Preds looking for their first win of the season, and then the Hurricanes and the Oilers. And with that, we bring in the one and only, the man, our friend of the show for many, many years, the great Eddie Olczyk. Eddie O!
Yay!
What's
Eddie,
up,
I'm
Beach?
fired up, buddy.
What's up, Beach? Taco, nice to be with you guys. And
Yeah.
Beach, I got to ask you,
Okay.
who canceled on you today when you called me out of the bullpen here? So who canceled on you? That's what I want.
Actually, Brian Boucher was scheduled, and he couldn't do it. So I tried to get Kenny Albert, but he was busy. So at any
He's
rate,
going to be
That's
very
not bad
busy in
being
the future.
third,
by the
Edzo.
way. Yeah, right, exactly.
there you go. Well,
Hey,
listen,
what
Eddie, I talked to you yesterday. There was no cancellations. There might have been other occasions when that has happened,
Yeah,
but this is
exactly.
not one of them. I wanted to get you on. We have Tony here today. And I want to just start, Eddie, by asking you, how long have you and Tony known each other? Because you guys came up, you're roughly the same age. I think you're a little bit younger than Tony.
Yeah.
But you grew up in that Chicago area in a time that, like, you weren't developing hockey players hand over fist. You end up being the third pick in the draft. Tony ended up having a terrific long career as well. How long have you guys known each other? I would imagine since you were kids.
Yeah, I mean, I knew of Tony back in the day. I mean, I love to refer to his family, as you know, EJ, as the first family of USA Hockey, obviously with the unbelievable success that, him and his brothers and obviously in Cammy have had in hockey at all levels, not only, the national levels for Team USA and the National Hockey League. So I remember growing up and watching Tony Granato play as a kid and seeing him play over for the Elmhurst Huskies down in Downers Grove area. And I think our paths probably crossed a couple of times at some USA Hockey development type of camps way back in the, I would say probably late 70s and early 80s. And then we got a chance to play together in the Canada Cup, I remember vividly, and play. I think we played a game or two maybe at the old Chicago Stadium back in the day. So, look at, if I'm doing the math really quick, I mean, our paths have been together probably for 40 plus years. And it's just been unbelievable. And you mentioned it, EJ. I mean, back in the mid 70s, there weren't many kids that grew up in the city of Chicago or the suburbs that eventually got to the National Hockey League. And I think Tony would agree. We would, as American-born players, there's no doubt that still to this day, the 1980 Miracle on Ice team opened up the doors for guys like me and Tony to make it to the National Hockey League. So yeah, our families go back a long time. I mean, Tony's dad was in the beer business, and my dad was a grocer for I think almost 60 years. So you know, their paths had crossed probably a lot sooner than Tony's and I's. But yeah, go back a long time, and couldn't be more proud of what he has accomplished, and his family and our families have kind of been intertwined for many, many years, a lot of different levels.
I'll jump in on that, Eddie, because, you know, I remember being older in Chicago, and all of a sudden everyone's talking about this Olchek kid coming up. And we're like, Olchek, who's this kid? Yeah. And you know, I never really had the chance to play against you because I was a couple years older when we were younger. But I did see you play because you played against my brothers and you played in different rinks that I was around. And it always amazed me. But the thing that, again, you as a 17-year-old making that Olympic team right after that 1980 team, the first team after, like all of a sudden, there's Eddie. And from that day forward, you never looked back. You know, you had a great Olympics. Then you the third pick for the Blackhawks. You go in, you score a goal at 18 years old in Chicago Stadium, you know, in front of your home fans, and your career went off and running. So, I mean, I got my idol up there was a kid, was Grant Mulvey. Then I got you, and I got a kid that I'm able to watch and follow every day since I'm working for the Blackhawks. But really what you accomplished, and I got to ask you the question, though, with all that you've done, there's got to be days you pinch yourself. You know, Stanley Cup with the Rangers, playing with Frazier and Murray, Olympics, all these things happen so fast to you, and all the things you've gone through in your life. Do you ever just take a time out and pinch yourself and say, wow, what? This has been a hell of a run, Edzo.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, Taco. You know, I think honestly, and I know, Tone, you've been in your battle, and you know, I'm praying for you. And there's a lot of people involved in hockey, and obviously next month with Hockey Fights Cancer Month, that we're all gonna, be zeroed in on upcoming in November. But I think I really had that time when I was sick, almost 7 years ago, where to just kind of take a deep breath and go, you know what? If this is it, it's been a hell of a run. And without the incredible support of my family, having 4 kids, now having 3 grandchildren, have another one on the way coming in December. It was an unbelievable privilege to be a part of this great game for now, I mean, going on, 40 years, which is kind of hard to believe. And, to be on a list like that, I mean, Grant Mulvey, he was an icon here back in the late 70s and early 80s. And then obviously now Connor Bedard is the future of the Chicago Blackhawks, and to be on that list there, it takes me back. And you're right. I mean, scoring a goal for my hometown team, the team I grew up living and dying with, and in getting a chance to score a goal against the Detroit Red Wings, I might add, to score my very first goal. And it was, certainly a dream. So, I mean, I think there are those days where you sit back and you wonder, but I had the unbelievable support, obviously, of my family and my friends, and had some coaches along the way and volunteers. So, but I think really when I was going through my most difficult time in my life is when I probably had that opportunity, and it was probably good for me to just kind of take a step back, and in the realization is that, if this is it, it's been unbelievable, and just appreciate, everything I have, I owe to the game of hockey. I met my wife on an airplane my rookie year in the National Hockey League, and I haven't looked back since. And I'm just very grateful, and to have friends and support like the both of you. It just makes it. That's what it's about. I think that's what the game is about. My opinion, what I've learned, it is about relationships, whether it's crossing or growing up in the same town, or working together, or working with. It's been an honor to be a part of this game, and I just feel very lucky to be on the right side of the grass after my battle 7 years ago.
Well, I can tell you a couple things. One, Eddie, is you were an inspiration during that time for all of us. And then, I went through a similar type of experience last year, and you were, and I told Ej before we started, you were the first one to check in every big appointment, every chemo that you knew it was going to be a tough one. Who was there to put the prayers and messages out to me to make sure that I was dealing with it. So the inspiration that you've meant to not just me, to all of us that have been able to follow the courage and the emotions that you've attached to it is what life's all about. So the relationships, bingo. There's nothing greater than a hockey family, and to have you as a friend, and to, again, when I was 19 and you were 16, and I was admiring who's this little guy I'm chasing around the rink to try to see if I could
hey, hold on. Let me stop you there. Look at -1 on Granato for the first time. I was never little. I was never little.
Okay, but you were younger in terms.
He wanted to be a jockey, but he was too big.
Yeah,
he was too big.
Yeah.
Hey, Halloween's right around the corner each, so maybe I go around as a jockey.
Yeah.
But Taco, thank you for that, man. I love you.
So
and,
the same love goes back.
Yeah, thank you,
so
man.
that's and again, I think it's a good message for everybody that has struggles and deals with tough times.
It could be anything,
get through
right?
It could be anything.
It can be.
You need a big
for
team to help
anything
you.
or anybody. Yeah, you do, and to know that there is that support and it is that help because I know what it was like. Because I say this like I had enough quiet time to last me a lifetime when I was sick.
Yeah.
And to get text from you, to get text from EJ, to get calls from friends and family and checking in, sometimes people don't know what to say, right?
Yeah.
Like they don't know how to maybe handle the situation. But you really, in the world we live in now, I mean, you can send something on the World Wide Web, EJ, and you can send a text, or you can just leave a voicemail and just say, hey, I'm thinking about you, I'm praying for you, and if you need me, I'm here. And but that's
great medicine.
Like that, it is. It's very helpful because it does test your will to live. There is no doubt about it. And like I said, it doesn't have to be this horrible disease. It could be anything. Yeah. But just to know there are people out there that love you and are praying for you, and if you can just help them just get through the day, because there was a time, and EJ, you know the story.
Yeah.
I mean, I like when I was going through my second treatment on September 15th of 2017, I was ready to quit. I was ready to quit my chemo. I wasn't even into, 2 full rounds of the heavy medicine. I was halfway through and I was ready to quit because it tore me down. It brought me to my knees, and I'm like, how am I going to get through today? I can't get through today. I can't even walk through my house without actually going to the bathroom. Like that's just the reality of it. And luckily I had my wife. I mean, my wife, Diana, and I've been in a lot of locker rooms and had a lot of great inspirational speeches. But, my wife just said, look, like I always said, I'm done. I was ready to pull the port right out of my chest and go, look, at whatever happens, because I can't live like this. And my wife said, look, you got to fight. I mean, we had a 25-minute conversation that lasted, and, then I cried for 30 of it. And she said, you got to fight. You got to fight for me. You got to fight for our kids. You got to fight for all the people that love you. And I think I needed that. So I think the moral of that is that, like there are people out there that can help you. And if you need help, you need to ask for that help. But then also, too, we need to make sure that we're reaching out and letting know those people that are in the battle, or the caretakers or caregivers, they're in the battle as well, psychologically, maybe not physically, but we need to make sure that we're checking in on them and making sure that they're okay. How are you doing? Let's go for lunch. Let's just kind of get away from the everyday grind, because it is rinse and repeat when you're right in the battle. So learned a lot about myself. I'm way tougher than I ever thought I was. And I think it really proved to me that, there's the power of family and the power of hockey is one. And if you can feel it, you can use it to your advantage. So just very thankful. So.
Well, listen, those words are really helpful for the listeners out there, the viewers. inspirational, and people go through all kinds of things all the time, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So it really means a lot
Yeah.
to hear it coming from you guys. And by the way, you both look terrific. So I'm really happy to see that you guys are doing well. There is a way to get out on the other side, and you guys have both proven that.
Yeah.
Eddie, I'll just ask you this, because while we're talking about, having gone through this, and Tony knows the same thing, he's been dealing with this, like, how has it changed the way you watch and do your job doing the hockey games? Because, like, you have to be critical sometimes, and and you're straightforward. You're one of the very best at this that's ever done it, being a game analyst. How has it changed the way you're watching? You got the Kraken now this year. You got the TNT games. How do you change your approach of doing the games, or does it at all?
Well, thank you, EJ. I don't think I'd like to think that I'm calling the games the same way as I did prior to my battle in 2017. Maybe if I'm running a little late, or the airplane is late, or I like to say, the limousine is a little late, but we're getting there with the NHL on TNT. But in all seriousness, I like to think I'm still calling a game as I did before. And you're right. I learned this a long time ago. My boss, my current boss at NBC, because I do horse racing for NBC still, but my old boss, Sam Flood, at NBC, when he brought me in initially on the national side, is, look, you remember, you're there to tell people why. And I've always remembered that for the many years that I've been doing this consistently since '06. So, but I love what I do. To be able to work with the people that I do, it's just been incredible. So I don't let the petty things bother me as much, EJ. Really, at the end of the day, if you're sitting in traffic or whatever, somebody cuts you off, I think I've probably taken a step back on, getting all excited and everything. But other than that, I really, I think when I see people that I have relationships with, and it's kind of been a theme so far, and I like that, because I think it's important for young people and young hockey players to understand the relationship and the trust factor that's out there. Is when you see somebody, you really shake their hand, and you get, and I'm a hugger, so I like to hug people when I'm shaking their hand. That's kind of how I was reared that way. I was always brought up that way, and to acknowledge and just, and I think the one thing I will say, though, EJ, and I'm glad you asked me this question, because it's been able to me to be able to think, is to let people in your life know how you feel about them. And I think that's maybe the one thing. Again, I know that's not game related, but there are situations when I do find myself in a game when I am using, maybe there's a player out there that, I would have loved to be able to play. I didn't like playing against their dad, but I would have loved to. I would love to play with the Foligno boys. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I think expressing maybe more the human side of it, and relating it, and then being able to dissect it and tell people, why. But I think that's the one thing that maybe I've added to my, whatever arsenal that I have when I'm broadcasting, is just, maybe get a little insight and a little bit more human than maybe I have in the past.
All right. Well, listen, we're unfortunately out of time, but just quick, how's it being a grandpa?
Well, let's see. Do you see that?
I saw the card up there.
How to baby Taco, you know this. How to babysit a grandpa.
Yeah.
So I read that often, and look, I have Audrey for my oldest son Eddie, who's an amateur scout with the Kraken. So I have Audrey, who's 4, my namesake. So there's 4 Eddie Olczyks, believe it. My dad Ed. He's an Ed. I'm not an Ed. I'm an Eddie. My son Eddie and his son Eddie. So we have 4 Eddies.
Nice.
And he's 3. And then I just had my granddaughter with my son Tommy, who was born in July. So what is that? 4 or 5 months old for Chloe. And then we have another one coming in December. Wow. So it's unbelievable. And look at anybody that's been in those shoes. It's when you see your own kids holding their kids.
Yeah. Wow.
Pretty special.
It's like strawberry ice cream in the middle of Las Vegas, EJ and Tom.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it is. Like, you just like, oh my gosh, like, it's depressing too, because it's like, where in the hell is the time gone?
I know.
But you're like, you know what? It's pretty damn cool, and pretty cool to be grandpa. And look forward to those hockey trips and dance classes and all that kind of stuff, and just get back on that bicycle and do it all over again, like I did with my kids.
No question about it. Listen, Nate, we got one.
No, thanks, Eddie, for being Eddie. There's so many wonderful things that you said out there that certainly for me make me think a lot how fortunate we all are to be part of this great game, but to have the families and relationships of all the people that come together when needed. So great job making that a big emphasis on.
Thank you. Yeah, keep up the great work, you guys. I'm always watching.
Enjoy the day off today, and you're back in action on Thursday night with the Kraken. So
the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets will be in Seattle, so I'll be there for that game. And then I'm headed to San Diego next week for the Breeders' Cup.
All right. Well, I'll be I'll be in touch.
Hey, grandkids need a new pair of shoes. That's what I was told.
All right. Eddie-O, thanks for taking the time, buddy. We love you. We love you, Eddie-O.
We sure do.
He's the best. The great Eddie-O. When we come back, take a look at these late games tonight. Is Kraken? They're playing a little earlier, but we'll look at the Kings, the Knights, the Ducks, the Sharks, all that next on First Shift. All right, here's a look at the final 4 games on this monumental 16-game slate for this Tuesday night. And you can see here the Senators in Utah to take on the Utah Hockey Club. That's at 9:15. Penguins continuing a Western trip against the high-flying Flames right now at 9:30 in Calgary. 10:15, the Sharks and the Ducks. No Macklin Celebrini, out for another 2 weeks apparently for San Jose, so we'll keep an eye on his situation. And then finally, it wraps up on ESPN in Vegas, the Golden Knights and the LA Kings. Let's talk a little bit about that one. You're a former LA King. You were part of that 93 team that went to the Cup final. And this team, some challenges early because of some arena work they're doing there at Crypto.com Arena. The team had to start with this 7-game road trip now. They got the eastern part out of the way. They're back in Vegas now. I mean, they've come through it not so bad when you think about things. And here's a look, a win over the Ducks in Anaheim on Sunday night. I mean, when you look at the LA Kings so far, they're in the mix. And that could be devastating to have a 7-game trip and just fall on your face.
And Drew Doughty out of the lineup.
Out of the lineup for months with an injury that he suffered in training camp.
So there were lots of things that could have gone wrong on this trip for them. They didn't play perfect hockey, but they played hockey in a way, again, let's go back to the thing we talked about earlier. They have a game plan in place. I think Jimmy Hiller has understood if we're going to get the most out of our team, this is how we have to play. Yep. And then Kopitar, you talk about their leader, about coming up big in key moments during this start of the season has been incredible. One of my favorite players because it's the same thing every night. You know, Barkov has that impact on Florida.
Similar players, right? Big, strong centermen that play backboard to backboard at each. There's just no getting away from them, and they can both provide offense.
In a big way.
Yeah.
And so I think that when you get a leader like that in the locker room and you start a season like that, there's so many guys, oh my gosh, we got this tough road trip to start the season. He calmed things down, and they've gotten off to a very respectable start. So finishing this road trip up in Vegas against a team that again, last year I picked them to win the Cup, even going into the playoffs in that 8th seed.
Yeah, I liked them too. I'm right with you. I mean, when everybody's healthy there and that defense is playing well, that's a big, strong, hard to play against team. Eichel, your number 1 center. They're trying to figure out like some of the back end forwards in that group, but it's been a pretty good start for them. 3-2-1. They're a tough out. And I mean, they're just hard to play against.
They're hard to play against. So I like this matchup. I think it's going to be 2 teams going head-to-head, not backing up. There's not going to be an inch of free ice out there tonight. They'll be fighting for every loose puck, and every little battle will mean that much more to each one of those teams. That's kind of both of their identities. They both want to be the bully, so to speak. And I like that mentality. And let's go back to Florida, because we didn't talk about that Florida a year and a half ago, the Keith Tkachuk comment about, gosh, they're soft. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, boom, from that day forward, whether it had anything to do with Keith Tkachuk or not, the Florida Panthers don't back up from anyone or any team or anybody. They push forward.
Yeah.
And that mentality of a
Well, that's
team,
what the good teams do.
they do.
You know,
Boston
Vegas,
Bruins,
LA wants to
Vegas,
be that way.
LA.
Yeah. They
You look
want to
at
be that way.
teams at Dallas
Yeah.
in lots of different ways. And really, that's what I think both of these teams are. They, whether you like the term bully hockey or not, they are physical, they're strong, they compete, and that's why it's going to be such an exciting game tonight.
Yeah, big night around the National Hockey League. 16 games, all starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And, of course, when you have 16 games, we've got to give you a really good parlay. We got a lot to choose from. JD has been cooking it up. I think he's got 4 legs on the top line parlay. Coming up next. Stay tuned. First shift. It is time for the top line parlay presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. And for that, we bring in our fearless prognosticator, our producer, J.D. Lindbergh. In this final segment, as a single man, as a bachelor, he is getting married. We wish you and your lovely bride nothing but the best on Friday. So win us some money.
Here we go. Let's see. I'm 0 for 2 thus far on
Yes,
the parlay. But
yes, you are.
anything can happen here. So let's get to the full screen sterno. Our first leg of the parlay, I like the Capitals in the first period to score a goal here. So over 0.5 goals in the first period. Fellas, what do you think?
I'm
like
all right.
it.
I'm all right.
I'm all for that.
Okay.
Ovi's going to get the one, just so you know.
Wow. Okay. And there, well, there's Tom Wilson. Tom Wilson has been on fire, by the way.
5 already?
Yeah, so maybe Tom Wilson gets it. But I'm with you on that, JD. I'll buy on that.
I support
What
it.
you got?
All right, we're 1 for 1 here. Here we go. I think you guys will like this one, too. We're going Rangers. It's first period puck line here. Okay, so in the first period, we like the Rangers to win the first period. So all they got to do is lead by a goal, and then we're good. So what do you guys think? You like the Rangers against the Habs?
I mean, listen, they're the favorite, right, Tony? I mean, they're the favorite to win the game, and we're saying just score early. The only thing is, that up in that Bell Center, it gets passionate up there.
Yeah, you better shadow Cole Caulfield in the first period.
There you go, you're a guy.
Our guy's hot. He's hot. But I like it. Why not?
You can't.
I'm going to stick with you, but
okay,
that's a plus. It's a plus.
We're
Plus
with you for
130.
2 legs.
All right, so 2 legs of it down. Here we go. I love this one. Even though they're against the Bruins tonight, the Nashville Predators. The line must be drawn here. Enough is enough. I like Nashville over 0.5 goals in the first period. They're going to get out to a good start against the Bruins. What do you guys think?
Each, what do you got?
I mean, they better. I mean, they're 0-5. They brought in all kinds of guys in the offseason. They re-signed Saros. They're supposed to be good. And they lose their first 5 games, 2 of which to Detroit. They gave up 4 goals to Seattle at home in the third period of a tie game. I mean, that's not a good start. They better come out hot tonight.
Yeah, if their goalie makes the saves in the first period like he used to and hasn't yet so far this year, you got it. They're gonna break out of this at some point. There's too much and too many good players on that team and too good of a coach in Andrew Burnett.
Yeah. All right. What's the last one?
All righty, 16 games. We had to go with the 4 leg here.
Okay.
This last one, all right? Sharks and Ducks, first period. I like the under on 1.5 goals, all right?
Okay.
Each, when you were not working on Sunday and Weeksy and I were, we watched a pretty good one between the Ducks
and the Kings. Yep.
Dostal looked great. Ducks, yeah, I know, Coach, you think the structure's a little suspect at times, but I like under 1.5 goals. All we got to do is get through a clean first period here, and we're taking this thing home.
I'm sorry. I am going to go against you,
going
JD.
against you there. That's
I know
not
you're
good.
getting married this week.
Yeah.
Should be patting you on the back and telling you great pick. I
Should.
would take goals in this game, so I think there's going to be more than one
less.
goal
More than less.
in the first period.
Okay.
They're going to come, these two teams too, young, skilled talent that are looking to bust out. Lots of guys have had a little bit of a slow start. They want to score, so it might be a little bit of wide open hockey early in the game.
And, you know, the good news is if you hit the first 3, maybe you hedge out.
There you go.
At that point.
Good point.
I'm not an expert on these things, but I mean,
I've heard of the hedge.
I have heard of the hedge as well, and so maybe you go to the hedge. But JD, not too bad.
Good luck, JD.
I've had worse ones. Hey, and Tony, thank you very much. It's good to see you, man.
Thank you.
Great to have you here on the first shift.
I love it.
That's right.
It's been
All
fun.
right.
Each, get us to break.
All right, that's enough for this. When we come back, we'll kind of wrap up the program. And, you know, even a guy like Wayne Gretzky, sometimes somebody can't figure out the spelling. We're going to talk about that in a sec.
This week on DraftKings Sportsbook, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and sign up with promo code FLY. DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
You know, mistakes happen. And unfortunately for Vitek Vanacek in San Jose, a little bit of a mishap. An A, should have been an E on his sweater the other night. But, like, don't feel bad, Vitek. They'll change that. They'll fix that, obviously. It can
Easy
happen.
fix.
It can happen to even the greatest players, because if you notice here, Wayne Gretzky with the New York Rangers, whoop,
Whoa.
that is a misplay there, but nonetheless, the show must go on, Tony.
I would love to have that jersey in my jersey collection.
I'm sure you would. Well, you know Wayne very
Yes.
well. I don't know if he's given that one up, if he hasn't, but that's great. Have you ever had that happen to you where the name got spelled wrong?
It had. And
Really?
ironically enough, it was with Gretz's 99er team. He brought a bunch of us, his friends. So
yeah.
Yzerman, Hall, Coffey, Curry, Fuhrer, Messier, Blake.
Oh, that was
McInnes.
the team went over to Europe and played exhibitions, right?
Yep,
During
and-
the work
yep,
stoppage.
Yep, and we were trying to get our uniforms kind of together really fast, so they sent them out to have the names put on.
And they had the red stripes on the arm.
Beautiful jersey.
Beautiful jersey.
And my name came back Graoto. N-O-T-O. I don't know, one of the A's should have been an O, whatever. And I still have it. I still have that jersey, but it
Really?
was good. Yeah, I wore that jersey. I played fourth line on that team. Somehow Gretz decided that he needed a fourth line player on that team. It was me, Talk, and Patty Conacher with the fourth line, dump and chase on the international rink. And we did a good job at fourth line. We held our own.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun.
What do you remember about that trip? That must have been a lot of fun to be there with all those guys. It's an exhibition, like you want to play well, but crazy.
So the first thing I remember is Blakey and I are sitting next to each other on the bus, and we're like, what are we doing on this bus? Look at the guys on this bus.
Yeah.
And it was Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer, and Blakey's a Hall of Famer, so he turned out his end of the bargain.
He held
I'm a
up the-
plumber. And we looked at each other, and we're pulling into these towns where thousands of people are in the streets waving all sorts of signs and welcoming us to their town. So being in Europe, being with that group of players to go over there and show off NHL players was spectacular.
All right.
And
Well,
we
listen,
won.
you're going to be back tomorrow.
I am.
So
Thank you.
we can talk a little bit more about that when we have more time. 16 games tonight. Enjoy it all. Stay with us right here on the NHL Network. NHL Now is next.